So today we're going to talk about Charleston. And we're going to move around Charleston and then we're going to go a couple other places. But we're going to start at Charleston because Charleston during this time in the 1700s and 1800s was the hub of slavery. It was called the capital of slavery. And you have to understand slavery wasn't a pretty thing, but it was very, very violent. These are some of the pictures that were created, paintings that were created um, to just kind of demonstrate what was going on at the time. Even though this is beautiful and it's romanticized, still, this is still horrible. We have this man whose name is Gordon, and Gordon eventually became a Union soldier in the Civil War. But he escaped his from the plantation, but you see the scars on his back. And he was able to tell the story to so many people, and they took pictures. And that picture, actually, you can find it in the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC, under the Smithsonian. And people had the picture in their wallets to show white people how horrible slavery was. And so during the war, this was something that people held on to. Soldiers, especially Black soldiers, would be able to recruit other soldiers by showing this horrific picture of slavery. Denmark Vesey was born in 1767 and died in 1822. He was born in St. Thomas, one of the islands, Caribbean islands. And he was part of a slave crew of enslaved people, about 300 on a boat, on a ship. And the ship was owned by Captain John Vesey. Somehow or some other way, I don't understand. I really don't know because they say so many different stories. Denmark Vesey was adopted by Captain John Vesey. And for about 17 years, he was his enslaved person. And in 1799, Denmark Vesey was able to win a lottery of about $1,700. And with $600, he actually bought his freedom. He became a carpenter and he became independent, wealthy. Now, he had been traveling with Captain John for so many years, he was conscious of what was going on. And even though he was free, he still knew that it was not right to have enslaved Blacks, period. Right? He had heard about Haitian Revolution earlier and knew that they were able to win their freedom. So he knew how to do it and what the powers were to be that person. So he had recruited hundreds and hundreds of people, right? Along the way, through talking to people with on slave ships and every place else. And he was determined to do a revolt. He had enough followers, and these men decided that they were going to revolt and they were going to take over Charleston, kill all the white people, and get on a ship and then sail to Haiti, period, right? So that he was training them, he was telling them because he was very intellectual. He also knew how to read. He was telling the people how to do it and when it was going to be done. But he was also warning them because he had been reading people and he knew that you do not talk to those who wore used coats. Now, what is a used coat? It is a Black person who has on an old coat given to him by master. And the master probably had a nice relationship with this person. And so that person was not to be trusted. Well, Denmark Vesey said they romanticize it and elaborate. But they said that he had probably about 1,000 followers that were ready to do this revolt. But one of those used coats turned on him and told. And so the revolt never came to be. But because of all the magnificence of it and people telling how it was going to be, it became something that it was romanticized itself. But at the same token, they caught Denmark Vesey and several of his men, and he was executed in 1822. Now, Denmark Vesey went to, this is the slave market during that time in Charleston. And this is the slavery, this is some of the pictures that were at that time by sketch artists for newspapers. But Denmark Vesey was a member of Mother Emanuel AME. So when he was executed, they went to the church because they felt like that was the hub that they told, all the information. That was where it was given. And so because of that, they tore the church down. Mother Emanuel was torn down and then it was rebuilt during Reconstruction. It's amazing. If you don't know where Mother Emanuel is or the significance of Mother Emanuel is, please look it up. Then we go on to David Walker, and that's where you read about David Walker's appeal to the colored citizens of the world. Now, David Walker was born in 1786 in Wilmington, North Carolina. He was born to a enslaved father, but he had a freed mother. And his freed mother made a decision to leave Wilmington. We don't know where he went directly after that, but he settled in Boston, Massachusetts. David Walker, again, knew how to read, was very intellectual, and just a very conscious person. And he decided to create this pamphlet called The Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World. This was one of the inside cover sketches that was in the original book. Now, you are seeing what you see now. Any time it's italicized or capitalized big, it really was like that. He made an effort to emphasize things with italics, something that was very progressive at that time. His eloquence in even the preamble, saying that he had been around, and since he had been around for so long, which I love, he said, "My dearly beloved brethren and fellow citizens, having traveled over a considerable portion of these United States, and having, in the course of my travels, taken the most accurate observations of things as they exist, the result of my observation has warranted the full and unshaken conviction that we, colored people of these United States, are the most degraded, wretched, and abject set of beings that ever lived since the world began. And I pray God that none like us ever may live again until time shall be no more." You know he's well read, and as you read on yourself, you can see that he quotes things from the Bible. He talks about Sparta. He talks about all these things, Greek, and then he goes into even the discussion of the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. Now, this pamphlet was so dangerous that in 5 states it was illegal. If they found people that had it, some of them would be executed on site. Now, during this time, 1830s, Britain had started freeing their slaves, the enslaved. And so you had Black sailors on some of these ships that were coming, right? Coming during the 1800s. And so the mid 1800s. So you had these Black sailors coming in. And what David Walker would do, he would have the pamphlets printed up, take it to the dock, and then those Black sailors were able to sneak into different ports and drop them off into the hands of different Black abolitionists or white abolitionists, as it is. So David Walker had this thing going on, and his whole thing was talk about how horrible this whole idea, this whole system called slavery is, and how hypocritical you Christians were in writing this Declaration of Independence, yet you are still enslaving others. Wow, what a revelation. So David Walker's pamphlet became illegal. The first one came out in 1929, and it was Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Louisiana all made it illegal to have this pamphlet. The mayor of Savannah, Georgia, was so angry that he sent some of his men to Boston and told them to talk to David Walker about not doing this again. Don't put this pamphlet out. Kind of a threat. The mayor of Savannah told the mayor of Boston, you need to control this Black man. He's illegal. And the mayor of Boston said, no, he's not. We are anti-slavery. He's doing it in the right place at the right time. And so David Walker did his third edition in 1830. And in 1830, it seems right after this pamphlet was put out, David Walker died in his home. Now, people say that it was he was poisoned, he was assassinated, but his daughter had just died of consumption. And they believe that he too had it, and he died as well. Now, this is what it looked like when it was first printed out. You can tell the paper is pretty fine. Some people still had it, hidden it. Some people searched for it, but if you were found with it, you could be killed. So this is what it looked like. It was in 4 articles. It's about 85 pages long. And so it was a pretty healthy, think about it, a pretty healthy pamphlet for that time. And the writing, look at the writing. It will be recollected that I, in the first edition of my appeal, promised to demonstrate in the course of which, and look at how he writes it. And this is what he did. And of course, this is European writing. So some of the spelling of the words are a little different than what we have today. Now, we're going to go into Nat Turner. Nat Turner was born in 1800 and he died in 1831. Nat Turner, and you're going to see a video of Nat Turner's insurrection. Nat Turner was born in Virginia, and he too knew how to read. He was very intellectual, and he was very spiritual. He was not a preacher, but he was a prophet. And he meditated, and he took time out to think of things, and he talked about how he dreamed these images of freedom. And Nat Turner got together with some of his men, enslaved still, but they got together and they started talking. They were talking to Woods. They were able to converse, and they would then start talking about freedom and a revolt and how to make it happen. Nat Turner thought about the most significant day would be July 4th, 1831. But he decided the signs were not there. It was not a good day for this. And so he and seven other men got together, and they started their revolt on August 21st, 1831. They went to the households, the first household, which was his master, and he killed all 5 family members. Everybody was killed, including the baby. They went from house to house to house, and within 1 to 2 miles, this is started on the Sunday, and 1 to 2 miles, they had killed about 51 people, white people. And by this time, now people have started fleeing, military starting to come in. By this time, his people had started growing. It was like maybe 60 people at one time and increased to, and the next thing you know, it was 100 Blacks that were getting there, 120, 130 Blacks that were coming in, and they were trying to revolt and take out these white people, trying to get to Southampton, Virginia. The military came in, and every time they killed at every house, they accumulated more weapons, more ammunition, but it still did not make it successful. White soldiers came in, they started killing. They killed about 120 Black people, and within 24 hours. And they were so wound up and so angry that they were going and killing anybody and everybody Black, no matter if they were free or enslaved. And so this went on for about a week, actually. And Nat Turner went into hiding in the woods. And he hid in those woods for about 7 weeks. And he thought that he had gotten caught because he went out, but he hadn't. And the dogs sniffed him out, but they were owned by someone Black, and they decided not to tell on him, but to run. But Nat Turner thought he was, he was, I guess, busted. So he went out and they found him and they put him on trial. And within 7 days, they found him, of course, guilty. Now, they executed the majority of the people. 17 were convicted and executed. There were 4 that were free Blacks. 3 of them were executed. 1 was discharged. They, so they found him guilty. They executed Nat Turner. And I'm telling you, white folks were so happy about his death that they hung him. Then how do I say this? Well, they chopped him into pieces. They had the surgeons dissect his body. They skinned him. They had his skin as souvenirs. They made purses. They made wallets. They used cut up the bones as part of heirlooms to pass down from a generation to generation. And even they said, documented, that there was a doctor, a physician, who has his skull, who lived in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, this became, of course, you know how rumors are. Rumors came so big that they were saying that there was 1,000 Blacks that trampled over Raleigh and Durham, North Carolina, and all these places. And it just gave whites that were so afraid the opportunity to kill enslaved and free Blacks. And so this went on for a while. Now, what occurred in 2 of these insurrections, one that never happened, which is Denmark Vesey, but it was still such a threat. They stopped people from going to church. Remember, they tore down Mother Emanuel because of Denmark Vesey. They decided that no Blacks or enslaved should ever, it was illegal for them to learn to read, because Nat Turner, of course, knew how to read. And so they were ensuring that this would never, ever happen again. And so this is 1831. And you will see, and these are some of the pictures. Some of these are romanticized pictures. This one is one of them. But others are, as I go back on this one is basically showing, the hero, the white man with the gun, taking this person, Nat Turner, to justice. And so you see that. So you have Denmark Vesey, you have David Walker, and you have Nat Turner. And one of the things, and it's kind of funny, I don't think I even stopped to talk about this picture of David Walker's appeal. David Walker wanted a revolution. He wanted a violent revolution to tear down and to kill as many whites as possible. Now, David Walker was before Nat Turner, who was inspired by David Walker, but David Walker was after Denmark Vesey. But because they were so close, Denmark Vesey died in 1822. David Walker died in 1830. And Nat Turner died in 1831. You really don't know if they were influenced, especially if Nat Turner was influenced by Denmark Vesey. But because of all these rumors, this could have happened. But also the thought that, I want to be free. How do you get free? You've got to, by any means necessary. And that's where we are now. So you all are reading David Walker's appeal. You see before with Denmark Vesey, and after Nat Turner. I have decided that on Friday morning at 9:00, I will be on Teams. If you all can't make it at 9, I'll make it at 10. Okay, let's say 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock on Friday, I'll be on Teams. If you want to talk, if you want to discuss, if you want to go through some of the things that we've already talked about, no problem whatsoever. But I will be on Teams at that time at 10 o'clock on Friday. And we will have another lecture in a couple of days. You all have a good one.